please God. When it is all ended, there must be an inscription that says, by faith, Carol stood the test of time. The rich man might not show up at your funeral. The politician might not come to your ceremony to say, well, I knew this one, because when people have politicians show up, it's like, oh yes, I am known by some big shot, but I've got somebody. He's not going to show up at my funeral, but he's going to stand at the portals of glory, and he's going to be the one that says, here goes one that lived by faith. By faith. There must be an inscription. And if it comes to the place of by faith, move on, my brother. It will tell you the reality that this is not just about going to church or just saying I'm a Christian, but understanding that every step I take, it's a step of faith. I purposely omitted verse 3 to bring you back to the reality that the very place you're sitting called earth came in existence by faith. He says, and we understand, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command. In other words, he spoke and it came into existence. Nothing on the day of creation asked God, where must I go? Or why are you calling me? Everything obeyed his voice. Everything is at his command. And the Bible begins with an inscription that says the earth was without form and void. It had no sense of organizational structure. But when he spoke, he said, water, hold your spot. Have you ever gone out to the beach and see the water decide that, look, I am not staying here. I don't business with God. I am going to go up on the road and run across the city. No, the water stand exactly where God has placed it, because he formed it at the sound of his voice. He spoke and it came together. It came from a place of faith. We understand that it's by faith it all came together. Trees grew out of the earth. Things pop up. Fruits begin to manifest. It all came from a place of faith. Faith. Faith put creation together. Now I challenge you to understand tonight, brothers and sisters, that true belief produces faith. Can you shout that with me? True belief produces faith and produces, in other words, faith and obedience are synchronized together. You can't have faith and walk in disobedience. And you can't say you obey and you have no faith. For when God says move, it is obedience and it is faith coming together. Because if you are going to move, you're going to say, God, where am I going? What am I going there to do? And some of us have the audacity to ask him, how much am I going to get? Because you want to know what is in it for you before you move. And all God says, step by faith. I remember 7 years ago when we decided to come here, one sister looked at me and he said, Pastor, you're crazy. How you're giving up everything that you have, going to a place that you don't know. Why don't you just send your wife to go all by herself? Let her go and explore the land, and if the land is right, then you can go after. If things are working out, I said, hear me, sister, I thank you for your comment, but hear me, wherever she goes, I go. Wherever one go, all of us go, and we're going by faith. I don't know where I'm going, but God has opened a door and he has said walk in it, and I'm stepping by faith. I could have sat down and said, boy, boy, I have a certainty of a job, of a church, and I'm not moving because I don't know where this place is and what is going to happen. But we all packed up, gave away what we had to give away, walked from a brand new house and said, God, we are going by faith. We are going by your authority. And hear me, friends, 7 years later, it is a testament that when you walk before God in obedience and in faith, he will make a way for you. Somebody testify in this room tonight. I don't know who that is for tonight, but I've come to tell you, like Abraham, God will tell you, pack up. God will tell you, let's move. And when God says move, there will always be a Sanballat and Tobias to tell you that you're wrong. There will always be somebody to tell you that there is another way to reason out this thing. But you can't reason out obedience. You can't reason out faith. You've got to just step. Somebody say step. You got to step. Faith and obedience is synchronized. It is synchronized. Can't forget when Brother Gary came. And after a while, he said, boy, Pastor, this thing is kind of becoming unbearable. I said, hold on a little longer. Something is coming. I couldn't tell him what was coming, but I knew something was coming. And as God's servant, I spoke from a place of authority and from a place of faith. Something is going to happen. And thank God, years later, he's sitting in this room as an asset to the body of Christ. Why? Simply because he could have said, boy, Pastor, all right, and everything else looked good for them. I don't trust that word. But he sat down and he said, I'm going to believe God, that God is going to open a door. And he can testify for himself tonight that God has opened a door and he has walked in it, and greater blessings, I declare tonight, is ahead of you because of your obedience to walking before God. So it's by faith. Now let's look at this one. It says, the faith that removes mountains. Everybody who want that faith, stick your hand up. The faith that removes mountains moves us to obey God. It is not cheap and it is not easy. The faith that you want, God give me the faith, that mountain moving faith, so I can speak to any mountain and they move. That faith is going to tell you that there are sometimes God says, don't go over there today. But God, I plan to go. Don't go. But God, what do you mean? What do I do? Sit still. And a lot of times we want to get to a place where we want to rationalize and figure it out. But I've come to challenge us tonight, brothers and sisters, that the faith that you want to move mountains is the same faith that is going to require that when God says sit down and be still before me and wait on my purpose, I am working something out. Sometimes many of us end up missing God's purpose and God's plan because we have a plan. A lot of times we end up missing God's plan because we have a plan. Lord, I don't see your way. But how many of us can still say, Lord, not my will, but thy will be done? And so the fact is, we are at a place where we want to move mountains, but you've got to first learn to obey. Abraham got the victory after he walked in obedience. Let's take the next one, if you will. I challenge you and I in this room tonight, brothers and sisters, to understand that we need what is called everyday faith. Somebody shout that tonight. Everyday faith. In other words, I am tired of hearing people who should be maturing in their faith in God get up on a Monday morning and say, God, I don't know what to do, and put their hands on their head and ready to give up. Your boss call you with a sad news. Quote the scriptures, Romans 8:28. I know that all things are working together for my good. But that sounds foolish, Pastor. The first thing you need to do is bind and rebuke. and said the devil is setting you up. I said to her, we had a conversation, a friend of mine, we had a conversation this afternoon, and I remember years ago, I had to say to her, or some time ago, I said, listen, you got to learn to be still. You got to learn to be still. And sometimes God is preventing you from the traps of the enemy when he stops you in your tracks. Oh, that comes some material. You will only understand that out of an experience. Sometimes you are saying, God, I keep telling this church, you've got to get to a place that you know God. Because if you don't know God, you will get to a place that you begin to quarrel with God against the will of God. You've got to know God. So when God says, be still, be still. When God says, hold your peace, hold your peace. Because God has a way of being able to divert you. Sometimes God put you on a detour. And you're saying, God, I didn't plan for this route. It's not what you planned for. If you get up and you say, God, not my will, but thy will be done, and his will is going to be done, and part of his will is a detour. I am sure that some of us in this room tonight and some of us watching are where we are because of the preservation of God. The preservation of God. Maybe if you had gone where you wanted to go, the devil would have been having rampage in your head and in your spirit and with your life and doing all kind of things against you. But God has preserved you. Somebody need to thank him right there tonight that in the everyday faith, God preserves. Oh God, I want to go to Africa. God, I want to go to Canada. Maybe if you had gone to Canada, the power would have gone out and you're freeze to death. But you can't see that. But God foresees it. And God says no. And then you say, I don't understand, the devil get in my way. And the devil trying to block my progress. It is God who loves you endlessly, seeks to preserve you from evil. So that's why your life is where it is tonight. Many of us would have wanted to be elsewhere. There are other places in the world that are more productive. You could make more money. You could establish bigger business. Things could have been better off for you. You could have had your nice house and maybe a nice apartment and you could be doing well. But sometimes God said, it is not my season. It is not in my timing. So all I've got to do is to stop you where you are and to preserve you. Even when you complain and you tell God you're not going to pray and you're not going to worship and you're not going to church and you're not going to give and you're not going to this and that. All God does is preserve you, because all he does is give you faith for the days that you're walking through so you can be preserved. Somebody thank God for preservation tonight. Oh Jesus, I feel his glory in this room tonight. Preserved. I hear God talking about that tonight. Preserved. You are preserved. The faith that you have every day, that you get up and say, God, I don't know what you're doing. That is always my thing to God. I have no clue what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, I'm in it. I'm in it. When you lead, I'll follow. So God is calling us back to a place where when your faith is ignited, you begin to walk by faith. The everyday faith, where I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but I trust you. Who can say that tonight? I don't know which job I'm going to get next, but I'm going to trust you. You'd have heard me refer to a conversation some time ago with my barber, and I said to him, listen bro, let me be very frank with you. You get up every day, Sam will tell you, you get up every day, open a shop, you don't know how the rent is going to be paid, but you step in there by faith. And you don't have to call your clients, they're coming to cut your hair. They show up. And every day, money is made. Children go to school. Bills are paid. You have something to save. And you keep going, going, going. And sometimes the enemy want to rob your savings. And you say, not so, devil, not today. And God preserve you. I wonder who I'm talking to in this room tonight. You've got to understand, none of us get up. You can get up, go to work tomorrow, and not a jackman show up in the place that you are working or the things that you're doing. But God touched somebody and said, you need a massage. Go take a massage. If you can get in your car, drive to work with no idea as to what's going to happen, and sit there and plan on money that you don't have. You didn't hear what I just said. You get in your car, drive to work, and park, and sometimes you're only here, you have one client or two clients. And before the day is finished, when you're coming home, you say, God, I'm tired. Because I expected 1 and 2, and then to sit down that nothing is going to happen. But God opens the door. Who am I speaking to tonight? I want you to begin to understand that God knows your need. And all you've got to do is to walk in obedience. Am I talking about everyday faith in this room tonight? Who tell you that tomorrow morning your boss needs you? But you plan on the Christmas money. Christmas not come yet. But you plan on the money. And what am I going to do for Christmas? And when I do this job and do that job, then I'm going to buy this and buy that. Who tell you it's going to happen? But your faith tells you that I'm here. And because God blessed me yesterday, and He blessed me today, it propels my faith with anticipation that tomorrow, oh Jesus, let's take the next slide. Because I want you to understand tonight that this man, he said, I want to follow Jesus in Mark chapter 5. But Jesus said, you don't have to follow me. I want you to go look for some other people and begin to testify that when I came 8 years ago, I didn't know how things were going to work out. But 8 years later, I have a husband. Oh Jesus. I didn't know how it was going to work. But 10 years later, I have the business. I was working for somebody, but now somebody working with me and for me. Are you understanding what I'm saying tonight? You might be grumbling and saying, boy, I don't know if this is going to work out. But you got to understand, Jesus said to the man, you don't need to follow me. I have turned you into an evangelist. I want you to begin to understand that the faithfulness of God that you have seen in 2019, and then you saw it in 2020, and then you see it in 2021. Some of you in this room tonight, you are still trying to figure out, how did I make it through 2021? My savings went low. Things went a certain way, but God has provided. Somebody help me praise God tonight. So Jesus said, you gotta go become the evangelist and go tell them that Jesus of Nazareth healed my body. I was bound with demons. Demons had my body. I literally had to sleep in a graveyard because my senses were so succumbed to the demonic powers. But God brought me back to my right mind. And so now I can testify of the compassion and the goodness of God. If your faith is going to exceed while God stretches your faith, your testimony encourages your faith. Anybody in this room tonight got a testimony of how God has made it happen for you? You spend some money and up to this day, you're still trying to figure out, how did I get it? You have gone through some things and you're saying, how did this work out? I've always emphasized the fact that no matter how things are nice, God has preserved you in good health. Who am I talking to tonight? He preserves you in good health. Doctors could have cut all over your body looking for this and that and the complaints you have. But there is nothing for you to complain tonight, because when you get sick, all you can say, balm in Gideon. I come back to the fountain of healing waters, and I allow your waters to flow over my spirit. Somebody lift your hand and praise God tonight. The question I ask tonight is, what's your story? What is Claudia's story? What is Claudia pending in the story? What is Judith pending in her story? What is Michael pending in his story to say, this is my story? I had to learn to trust God. Boss didn't give me the answer I was looking for, but my faith is not in a boss. My faith is not in a man. My faith is in Jesus Christ. There were many times when they said, boy, it can't work. You can't come back. This is not going to happen. You go around the corner, you ask this one, you try that, and nothing worked. But tonight you are right where Jesus wants you. Why? Because it is in your story that you must testify of the goodness of God. Anybody in this room want to declare tonight, Jesus never fails? I'm not talking about some ideology or some gathering or some movement. I'm talking about the one, Jesus Christ, never fails. I want that to be a part of your story. I said I want that to be a part of your story. That when you get to a place that you're rubbing 2 cents together and you can't figure out how the next bill is going to be paid, with those 2 cents you must still declare, Jesus never fails. Oh God, help me tonight. I said when you get to a place when your boss said, I really don't like your attitude and I don't know if I really want you, you must still stand in his office and tell him, Jesus never fails. You see, when you submit some papers and you're asking God for favor, don't just sit down and say, God, I'm begging you. Begin to declare his goodness. Jesus never fails, because that's a part of your story. He never fails. Somebody testify in this room tonight. Jesus never fails. What's in your story? What's in your story when your back is against the wall? Jesus never fails. What does it look like when things look like this is it? I will have to pack up and go somewhere else. It's the same statement. Jesus never fails. I said to the church this morning, I said there are many people who are complaining about the pandemic, but can I tell you, in your story there must be a chapter that says, in the time of the pandemic I saw the Lord. I shared last year of the fact, or at the ending of last year and sometime in this year, the fact that when the pandemic hit, some people started wondering, how am I going to buy food? And I can testify, all the people I know, I have never seen one who said, boy, I need a little Lasco to revive me because my body is malnourished. My body is so broken down and weak. I have never come. As a matter of fact, I saw some people when they came out, I wonder where they were, because the hibernation and the eating turned them into something different, and you're wondering what has transpired. Why? Because Jesus, somebody help me preach tonight, Jesus never fails. Somebody lift up your hand and thank him tonight that he never fails. Open your mouth and thank him. Lord, you never fail. 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 So may I challenge somebody tonight that in your story, when the enemy decides that he's going to launch